Welcome back. Deck Hockey Focus here, checking in with you guys one last time. Play is finally over for the day. We're exhausted. I'm sure you guys are twice as exhausted as we are. But boy, has it been one heck of a day. Want to say thank you to everybody who's been giving us, props on all the hard work. Because we made the trip and we love it. We've been having a blast. So we really do appreciate everybody kind of like welcoming us in and joining the family. And this has just been a great environment and a great weekend. And we got some great matchups.
Absolutely. It's I'll just piggyback on that. Absolute great experience. We're so glad we made the decision to come out. This has been absolutely fabulous. So thank you, everybody. But you want to talk about what happened today and what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, too much has happened for us to run through everything. But let's take a peek at the standings now that they're finally kind of set in stone. There were a lot of things up in the air, a lot of teams battling. We got our relegation going. So now let's take a look at the B standings here, and we've got run them through here.
Yeah, so coming out, the number one seed in the B pool, as is tradition, followed up by the Dirty Birds, two local teams actually, and the 2 seed. The Barons all the way from LA in the number 3 seed. The Outlaws all the way from Ontario in the 4. Another local team going to Blitzkrieg in 5. East Coast Empire, which is from the East Coast, in the 6 seed. The Rhode Island Rage in 7. And rounding it out here is the Garden State Indians. Just real quick on that, and just to reiterate what just happened in the play-in games, is as is tradition, played a hard-fought battle against the Graphics with a 2-0 victory, moving on to the A pool.
Yeah.
And then the Bauer Saints, who were in the A pool, had the first 8-0 game end early.
So they mercied
night.
it. So they saved the legs a little bit, which is going to be a huge factor.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some rough ones.
All right. So rounding that out here, to the A pool.
I mean, no surprise, leader in the clubhouse is the Gods.
The host, the hometown boys, playing in their own backyard, Pittsburgh Gods with the 1 seed. Followed up there by the Godfathers. I think that might be a theme we're hearing for a while here. But
matchup may be in the works. We'll see.
Obviously all the way from Ottawa there. Again, Niagara, number 3. Rebels, number 4, both from Niagara. Followed up by the 5 seed. Surprise, Montreal Red Light.
Yeah, didn't expect to see them that low.
Yeah, and honestly, this one's a little surprise for me too. Garden State Warriors at the 6 seed. But then kind of through the middle of the pack here, Leominster, kind of a hard-fought battles all weekend. Had some good wins, had some tough losses, but they take the 7 seed. Barrie, the Flyers, or Ball Hockey Flyers as they're known this weekend, at the 8 seed. Now the Savages, Stony Creek at the 9. Penn Hills Arsenal at the 10 seed. Followed up by the Bauer Saints coming off that big, hopefully a momentum game for them at the 11 seed, and Graphics, who fallen back to the B pool at the 12 seed.
Exactly.
So what do we have to look forward to tomorrow, man?
Well, so early games kicking off 7:15. The Americans will be taking on Arsenal, while on the other rink we've got Flyers and Savages. Those are going to be 2 great games. Red Light with As Is Tradition, and I know that the Tradition boys they're excited. They're pumped. They're not going to take it lightly, so hopefully Red Light brings the A game there. Warrior Saints on the other rink at the same time there, and then moving through Dirty Birds versus Rage, Graphics taking on the Indians, Outlaw have Blitzkrieg, and Barons Empire. And that leaves everybody else to kind of sit, watch, and see who they've got.
Yeah, that leaves the 1 through 4, the Gods, the Godfathers, the War Pigs, and the Rebels kind of hanging out, waiting to see what happens. So they're a little TBD right there. The first of those games kick off at 11:35, followed by a 12:40.
Give them the opportunity to kind of maybe sit around and scout a little bit, too, to see what you see.
So, Mock, after a long full day of hockey yesterday, what do you think is going to be factors coming into Bunny Round Sunday?
I'm going to go on a limb and say that as the fatigue starts to set in and teams get a little more sloppy, the run and gun might not be as productive, or that dump and chase or freewheeling offensive might be less productive than we've seen. So I think it's going to come down to set plays, offensive zone face-offs specifically, and generating quick scoring chances that don't take a lot of energy.
Energy. You want to go, those organized teams, those organized players who are going to win that draw know exactly what they're going to do.
That have been playing together for a while. So that's where the veteran status might come into play pretty heavily there. And then kind of in that same vein, the special teams. So when you've got the attacker, you got the extra attacker there. that's when you're going to be able to capitalize because, again, not taking as much energy out, really capitalizing on those is going to be huge.
Well, it's going to be I think where the success is going to come on the power play again, and it ties into what we just said, is those who are organized, those who are going to be patient and wait and, take the time that they're given.
And then maybe even to say keeping composure and not letting the fatigue set in, starting to get a little hangry sometimes and taking dumb penalties can really mess you up.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that physical play that we saw today translates tomorrow, I mean, everybody's playing to move on. So I think that might intensify. So it's going to be about playing physical, about playing, the game that you're here to play, but keeping it in check and you're keeping your head about you.
Sure. And we've touched on it before. We'll touch on it again. That kind of wall that forms in the neutral zone. And I think the team that, I don't know if you want to consider that a set play. It's starting to seem like it is. And I think the team that is having the chemistry in the neutral zone and really finding the way to bridge that gap and then, maybe
break into the zone.
Pull the drawback. Yeah. That's going to be huge into generating some offense there.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point. And it's going to be huge. We saw that today, and we saw some really good teams that could not get past that defensive line.
Totally.
The blue line was locked down, and they just couldn't get through it. So those who are going to be able to do that efficiently and effectively, I think are going to have a lot more opportunities. Well, obviously, it's a score because you're in your offensive zone, but to keep the energy expenditures down.
And I think that we're going to see some of the lower ranked teams, some of the teams that we might be looking to upset or stifle the freewheeling offenses that you see from, Montreal Red Light, things like that. That's where you're going to see them really stacking that and playing that very conservative. So busting through those barriers is going to be huge.
What I think might be interesting here, though, and just kind of parlaying to what you said, is the possibility that some of these high-performing, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams, those big-name teams,
Sure.
Maybe they were playing a little more conservative today and not showing what they're actually going to do tomorrow. Maybe
That's a
there's a
good
game
point.
plan to it. I don't know. I'm speculating, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, and then I've seen as guys start to get fatigued again, I've seen defenses having a tendency to, when things get into a board battle or whatever, they want to go right back up, right into the high pressure area again. And a lot of times what that's doing is just feeding it back to their point men, and it's almost a bit of a panic. So what I want to see is some of these teams, rather than trying to chip it out and getting that just trying to break the zone, maybe pull back, compose yourself. If
Reset.
you got to get a change, but don't feed back into the pressure.
Yeah, use the reset. Like we talked about on power play, is keep that composure and be smart about what you're doing and take what they're giving you. If they're not giving you what you're trying to do on option A, draw it back, restart it, get the breakout going, and go at it again. If you don't have it again, do it again and again.
Exactly.
And just be patient, keep the composure about you.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's going to be that mental aspect about keeping your head right and operating smart and effective.
Yeah.
Those teams that are going to be able to do that, I think, are going to be teams that we're going to see advance far tomorrow.
Yeah, and so we've been touching a lot on obviously the physicality and how teams are getting a little bit slower and more fatigued and things like that. And I wonder if there's going to be a factor involving teams that are getting up bright and early and maybe not having as much time to rest or sleep in, or conversely, that might be we're up, the blood's pumping, our day's started. And I'm seeing a duality between we want to sleep in, we want to rest, we want to hydrate and get a good breakfast in us, but that could maybe weigh you down. So,
yeah, and I'm torn on this one. I don't know what's the best option, and even for me personally.
Yeah.
Do you go on lack of sleep and get the adrenaline running right out of the gate, or do you rest up and then have to wake up later? And then conversely, is everybody with those bumps and bruises? Does that extra rest and extra sleep let that set in a little bit more?
Exactly. Do we have undisclosed injuries?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I honestly, I think those teams who are used to performing in these types of tournaments understand the format, understand that you're going to have to Ironman it on Saturday and turn right back around and do it on Sunday. That conditioning, I think that's where we're going to see those teams kind of come through.
Sure. So let's put some teams. Who are you excited to see?
I'm honestly quiet team, number 4. And I say quiet in the manner that they're good. They got the 4 seed, right? But they weren't loud about it. They weren't quiet. They showed up. They did their jobs. They did it repeatedly. And then they went back to the room, rest, regroup. Niagara Rebels. I'm really interested what the Barabas boys are going to bring tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be real interesting. I think I'm most excited to see red light, because I guarantee you they're asleep by now. They get home, they hydrate up, they watch some game tape, they're snoozing. They're going to come with new legs, new mentality, and if they start to break out their offense, look out.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm excited to see when they take the training wheels off and play. I mean, everybody brings a different intensity to Sundays, and I'm excited to see what that bump of adrenaline does to their offense.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about those seasoned guys and those guys that are conditioned for it. These guys, even though they're playing separate most of the time on two different teams, 3-on-3, they're doing this every other weekend. They're used to this. This is what they do.
Well, and I think it goes to be said for both the Rebels and the Red Light. I mean, other teams too, but specifically since we're talking about them, everyone on their team is a scoring threat.
Yeah.
So you can't let anyone get loose, get away. And when you got 5 guys that are all a scoring threat, you got a lot to worry about.
Well, and let's call this out. We've played with and against number 55 on Red Light, Yannick Yomf, and we know what kind of shot he has.
Yeah, I haven't really seen a giant clap bomb out of him, but
that's because he hasn't had to use it.
Yeah,
he's been playing that more conservative game of just, I'm gonna lock this down. Forwards, you got it. Take care of it. I got you covered back here.
When he lets one rip, I mean, run.
But it ties to your point. Everybody's on a scoring threat. And even more so, we haven't seen a lot of him today. It doesn't mean that ball's not going to come 115 miles an hour at you when he has the opportunity to do it. So any team that forgets that he's kind of hanging out up there, focused on the offense, that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So they're top to bottom good, and hopefully tomorrow, or even what we talked about earlier, that they're showing a different game today, preparing for tomorrow. We're going to see what they bring, and I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, so I want to put some teams on upset watch, even though, man, honestly, when we talk upset watch, I want to put every single team on upset watch because that's been the theme of the day with all the shootouts, and everything's just been so bizarre. But Garden State Warriors.
We talk about them every tournament. They started this franchise with 2 back-to-back finals, barely missed it at the North Americans, and they're here. They've had a rough go at it, but I'm going to disagree with my own statement. The only reason their 2 losses is Johnny Ruiz in shootouts hit 2 pipes.
That's tough.
He's 1 for 3 in the shootout, but he's 3 for 3 for beating goalies. And if he converts those goals, we're having a different conversation about the ranking. We're having a different conversation about matchups.
That's a good point. So we're putting them on big-time upset watch. Who else you got on upset?
This isn't an upset. I'm just going to clarify that right out of the gate here. But the War Pigs, again, with their Niagara brothers and the Rebels, they've both been quiet.
Yeah.
Nobody's really been talking a lot about them. They haven't been so over the top, like offensive-minded. They've been solid offensively. They get their jobs done. They've been solid defensively. They do their job, and they go home.
Yeah.
I think they're not upsets. Just to clarify, but they're teams that are going to, I anticipate making some noise tomorrow.
Yeah, I feel like when everybody's filling out their brackets, they're not penciling them to go all the way, and I personally would not be shocked if they really, really show their colors.
Yeah, well, and I mean, speaking of Garden State again, Warriors beat the War Pigs in a shootout.
Yeah,
and War Pigs obviously one of the top perennial teams in every tournament. So that ties into the anybody can win mentality, but also the upset watch of the Warriors.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And then, I mean, we talked about them once. We'll talk about them again, the Rebels.
Yeah. I'm going to talk. It's the same conversation, right? Those guys are just consistent.
They're dialed.
Yeah. They know what to do. They know how to do it, and they're going to come tomorrow and do that. So, again, not an upset. Somebody who's going to make noise tomorrow. They spent all of pool play quiet, under the radar, just doing their jobs. Tomorrow, I think they're going to make some noise.
Okay, so paint me your fantasy scenario, however brackets, however reseeding works out, whoever wins and loses. If you're writing your perfect championship tomorrow, when it's all on the line, who do you want to see in the final playing for the cup?
So this is like outside of all brackets that may exist. This is
perfect world.
Any 2 teams I want.
Perfect world. Stranded on a desert island.
All right. All right. I'm going to go off the beaten path. I think people are going to want to see, a God Red Light matchup. I want to see a Godfathers rematch from the North Americans.
I like it. I like it a lot.
That overtime win, those tiny little bounces. Again, we could be having a different conversation about the Godfathers with that win, but the Gods got the bounce. I want to see those 2 go back at it.
And I like the idea of both of them going back and watching game tape of themselves playing each other for a championship, you know, and just scrutinizing over every little bounce and every little mistake that anyone could have ever made. But if I'm painting that picture, I want to see what happens when the Godfathers play Red Light. I think those are two franchises that have absolutely different mentalities and different
styles.
attitudes. I mean, one is laid back, party hard, disco ball. I mean, dress to impress. And, you know, a Canadian rapper would be kind of tight there. Yeah. And then you've got the flip side of that coin, which is the uber professional Red Light. You know, I mean, they're getting rub downs from the trainers, and
they're working themselves out. They're getting rest in.
Yeah.
They're watching game tape. They're that organized, that proverbial pro team, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have structure. They're organized. They have a game plan tomorrow. The tale of two tapes, right? Heads and tails.
I love it. I think that one would play out so fantastic. And then I think tomorrow what we might be shocked by is just some random guy who's been flying under the radar, maybe got a couple of assists, kills some penalties and stuff. Tomorrow is when somebody can become the hero. Yeah. You know, I don't think it's going to be the Alex Burrows. I don't think it's going to be Ruiz. I think it's going to be some guy that we're probably not even acquainted with, and he's going to have the highlight reel, and he's going to become the guy.
No, I think that's very possible, and it's kind of what we talked about. People are going to focus on the big names, and if you do that and forget about it, kind of like everybody on Red Light can score and leaving 55 sitting up top. If they forget about anybody out there, these teams are all good. These teams, like most of these teams, are in the top 10. They can all produce, and if you focus on one or two guys, you're going to lose sight of the 3, 4, 5 that are out there, and those are the guys that are going to get it done.
So last question before we wrap. Do you think it's going to be a high-scoring day, or do you think it's going to be, 2-1 victories?
I think it's going to be 2-1. I think it's going to be defense first, play conservative style, no mistakes, and capitalize on mistakes.
I guess it probably does depend on the matchup, but I'm hoping for barn burners.
Oh, I want 10-5, 10-5, 10-7. I want goal after goal, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's going to be a lot of at least one goal differential games like that.
Yep.
So a lot yet to be seen. We're definitely excited. We disagree on everything, including with ourselves. So make sure that you guys, tweet at us. Tell us who you got on Upset Watch. Who's your ideal matchup? Who are you guys excited to see play? Who's going to be the big player of the day? All that good stuff.
And we're going to be camped out tomorrow in the Crow's Nest, or the Penthouse, as we're calling it. So feel free to stop by, guys. Love to interact with you.
Come say hi.
Love your feedback. Just catch up, put some names and faces together. Love to say it. Just love the feedback from you guys. So.
Yep. And if you get knocked out early and you're heading home, make sure you're checking out MVP's live stream. Make sure you're on deckhockeyfocus.com, catching our player interviews, which we've got a few more of those in the bank. We got a couple more scheduled for tomorrow. Appreciate everybody who's coming on the show there.
Absolutely.
And you know what? If you're a superstar tomorrow, we'll get you on camera. No problem there.
All right.
What else? No, we've got our Snapchat rocking and rolling, the Twitter.
YouTube.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're loving to see everybody giving us feedback here, so keep it coming. We're excited for tomorrow. We can't wait. Let us know who you got, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.